Hello, everyone. If you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward about 14 minutes until we start, or you can watch this nonsense that we are going through in the pre-show. Let's see if I can get my act together and get things going. Hello, chat room. Let's see if we can make things live in there. /live and /live. And let's change the website, shall we? Let's do that. If I can find out what that is. Let's change this. All right. And that would be the appearance. No, it'd be under settings. My promo bar. And let's change this message to be let's move things over. Here to join us. And let's point to the live site. /live. There we go. And let's reset a cookie. And let's save those changes. And while we're at it, let's empty caches so that everyone will see it. All right. And that's working. We've got other stuff going out in the meantime. Okay, let's get a presentation going. I know I am not talking into the microphone. Let's hear this as well. I should probably start a couple of things up over here for it's been a while since I've done this. And let's get a Skype loaded. Boop. Boop. That's good. That'll be ready for later. Let's listen in, shall we, on how the audio is sounding. It would be good to do a little quality assurance before this thing really gets going. So I'll go to the same page you folks are on and listen in to all of this. On how the audio is sounding, it would be good to do a little quality assurance. I think that works just fine. Very nice. Hello, chat room. All right. Let's move some things around. What else do I need to do? Where's my list? I made a list so that I would know what it was I was supposed to be doing. This is study group. Let's search for everything that says study group. I got a lot of stuff that says study group. Holy cow. A lot of things. Can everybody see those? Of course not. Not over my shoulder. And of course, did I not call it study group for some reason? Maybe checklist. See how much easier that is? That's not even close to what it's supposed to be. In fact, I can delete that. I can delete that. Well, that makes it easy. Let's see what else is going on. Here, it's not called checklist. It's called prep. Checklist. There. Now we've got the name there. Just before event, update the website banner. I've done that. Update the TriCaster. If I had not done that, you would not be seeing this. So that works too. What else? And then immediately after event. So we don't need to worry about immediately after. What we do need to worry about is recording stuff. So let's get that going. So there we go. Cylons are going. And for those of you sending emails, I know it's not a Cylon. I know it's going in a circle. Oh, I get letters. Okay, were we going to do a, let's do a check. Let's do a check of these things. It's darker than what I would like. I'm going to have to adjust that later. A little bit darker than what I would like. I adjusted lighting in here a little bit. So I'm going to have to make some changes later. Let's, what's on my screen? That's on my screen. This is on my screen. This is on my screen. All right. Rock and roll. Digging it. All right. Hello, chat room. I think I'm in a place where I can do this now. Let's change the bookmarks here. Let's change the view here. Make sure everybody is in Socrative. Make sure I can play things on my iPad. I can. All right. So we've got 8 minutes. 8 minutes until we do something. And of course, I have a fuzz. It's not what you need. You'll spend the entire time trying to find fuzz on your face. See what happened there? I went away. So we can find the fuzz. Now we're maybe we're better. I don't know. Oh, we need to I need to put something in my I need a lozenge. One moment, please. Okay. And we're back. So, how was your holiday? How were things? It's kind of nice to be back. I have been very busy. Well, since this is the A+ study group, that makes sense. Being busy with those things. What else? I think we're ready. You can see me, you can hear me. So that's really the important part. Oh, my phone is uncharacteristically at 100% battery life. Clearly, there's been a problem. There goes the tweet, which also means the email went out, which also means the Facebook message went out, which also means the Google Plus message went out. Only a couple of things going on. Let's see if I can. Where's the other stuff? Is this the presentation? Yes, it is. Looks like everything is there and ready. Oh, did I do the... Oh, that works fine. That's delightful. It's the little things. I guess you guys can't see. There's a big screen behind this monitor is a big television that I'm going to move out of here eventually. Wow, that lozenge was chalky. Oh, got some new throat spray, and boy, it's not great. But boy, it works. It tastes horrible, but works fantastic. Woo! Okay, I am awake. Today we'll be doing content from both the 800 and 900 series. And I think basically all of the questions will apply to both. Let's see. One of them is 900 only. It's 800 and 900, 800 and 900, 800. So of all the questions I've put on here, I think the only one we will get to that is there's only one that we will get to that's 900. All the rest should apply to both. It won't be 800, it'll be both 800 and 900. There's so much overlap. So, and I want to make sure people who are studying for the 800 have something to study. Doesn't make sense to jump completely over, although I would say 75% of the 900 series exams are the same content as the 800. This will usually last, well, the Q&A is an hour, and then I'll usually just open up the phone lines or chat. I've got other messages people have sent me, and we'll do whatever until my voice gives out. What time are we at? We got 2 minutes. Boy, that went fast. Boy, that spray was a thing. Remind me not to wait so long to spray my throat next time. This was some new stuff. Singer's Saving Grace, it's called. And it is like an all-natural, it's got a bunch of roots and more roots and some more roots in it and some honey and some water, and it's herbs, and it works like a champ. But boy, oh boy, does it pack a punch. I'm also trying out some Slippery Elm lozenges so that we can keep talking as long as possible. No, well, there might be just a little flavor of dirt, just a tad bit in there somewhere. It's not bad, is it? I'm sure it's not. All right, we got a minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Oh boy, I got an update to my Twitter app, the official Twitter app running on macOS, and it is awful. They did not do a very good job on this. I may have to go to a third-party app. It doesn't understand that I've already received these I've told it not to show me certain notifications, and it insists on showing me. It's very proud. No, you should know about this. Well, I don't want to know about that. No, you really do. I know you said you don't want to know about that, but really you do want to know about that. Okay, we're about ready. We could do a thing with this, don't you think? Don't you think we could? I think so as well. We're recording. We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the January 2016 Professor Messer A+ Study Group. It's a new year, isn't it? Welcome all to this live event. This is the event that we do once a month where I go through questions that you've sent in and asked me, and I put them in a question and answer form, and then there's a way that you can interactively answer online. It's really neat. You're going to love it. I promise. So grab a chair, make yourself comfortable, get your mobile device, or pop open another browser, and I'll show you in just a bit how you can answer along with everyone else who's here. If you're watching this over on YouTube, there is also a live chat available that you don't get if you're watching on YouTube, and you're missing out if you're not in the live chat. If you go to professormesser.com/live, you will be able to join us in the chat where we're talking about all kinds of nonsense in the pre-show. There is so much to talk about and go through today. First, let me, of course, thank everyone for joining us and being here. I do this every month, and I wouldn't be able to do it without your support. In this first hour, I'll go through some questions and answers, and in the second hour, I'll open up the phone lines, and you can call in at 855-785-RJ45. I'm putting out a lot of videos right now. All of the A+ content is being updated, so make sure you subscribe over on professormesser.com/YouTube. And if you like the daily pop quiz question that I send, one of the best places to get it is on Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter. And the new voucher codes are out, so you can save money before you take your exam at professormesser.com/vouchers. Some of you have already gotten your A+ certification or your Network Plus or your Security Plus, and you want to be able to use this study group for your continuing education credits. If you don't know what these continuing education credits are, you can go out to CompTIA's website. There's a whole section on continuing education, so you can understand exactly what that means and how many credits you can get for this. I think, let me turn on the highlighter I have. So if you have A+, you can earn 4 credits, 4 hours of this, 4 of these events. If you have Network Plus, you can get up to 6, and for Security Plus, you can get up to 10 just by watching what we're doing in these study groups. And I'll tell you, somewhere in the study group, you have to be listening. I will give you a secret code word. You have to know that code word to be able to earn your continuing education unit credit. So make sure you listen in for that. There's a lot going on with the A+ exams right now. Obviously, on December the 15th, the 220-901 and the 220-902 were released. These are brand new A+ exams. Now, that doesn't mean the old exams go away immediately. The old exams actually stick around for quite some time. They're going to be around until June the 30th of 2016. So they really gave us just over 6 months to be able to be prepared to. So if you've been studying the 800 and you're ready to take these 800 series exams, you can still do that. So always you should think about which version of these you would like to take, and especially keep in mind that time frame. Both of these exams, whether you take the 800 series or the 900 series, give you exactly the same certification. So don't feel that one is better or worse than the other, because that's absolutely not true, because ultimately the certification you get is identical. So you don't have to worry about that piece of it. If you're working on your 800 series, don't think that you have to stop everything and readjust. You can keep going with these. If you are already A+ certified, you don't have to take your 900 series exams. These are new exams for the people that are working towards getting their initial certification. Now, the renewal process might involve you taking the exam again, or both of these exams again. That's a hard way to do it. There are much easier ways to renew your certification. So something we'll talk about probably in the after show. There are a number of questions people sent in about that, and I will make sure you know about that. The reason I'm able to do these study groups and have all these cool pieces of equipment sitting in front of me is because I have your support, and you've been able to effectively build this around me. I do that because you're able to purchase my course notes and purchase my offline courses. Of course, I have the 801 and 802 course available that has the MP3 and all of the additional PDF content. And you can find out more about how you might want to be able to download those at professormesser.com/download-A+. I have also finished the 901 series, and something that I'm doing new this time is you'll be able to purchase these separately. So if you're just getting into this, you've already done your 901, you just want the 902, now you'll be able to buy these separately. I've only finished the 901. So the 901 is currently available for purchase at professormesser.com/download-901. And one big difference in the 900 series is it's full HD now, 1080p. There's MP3 audio that is included with this. And if you get this downloadable course, you also get my course notes with it. That's something that's also new. So you might want to find out about those pieces as well. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to answer the questions. The only way you're going to be able to answer them is if you go online to this fantastic service called Socrative. This Socrative is something that's very useful. You can go to Socrative.com and go to the room name Professor Messer. Make sure you type that in, Professormesser. Make sure you say it right, or else you're not going to be able to see the question that's up on the screen right now. So you'll know if you're working on this right now. There's also an app that you can put on your mobile device. So if you have an Android, an iOS, a Windows Phone device, you can install the Socrative Student app. That student app will allow you to do everything from your mobile device. You don't have to change screens. You don't have to press any buttons. The questions simply pop up on the screen, and you'll be able to answer them. So if you're able to go to Socrative.com and you go to the room name and you've typed the room name in properly, you'll see this. You'll see a question that says, how long have you been studying for your A+ certification? And you'll be able to answer that. In fact, I give you a number of different options here. I say that, have you been studying less than 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months, more than 9 months, or I already have my A+ certification. And you can answer this, and you can see this is interactively, this is moving dynamically as you're answering these questions on the screen, which is great. So I can follow along with how you're answering. I can find out more about the things that you're doing there, and really see what the answers might be. So you can vote along with me on the screen. So you can see, in fact, here 33% of you have said less than 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 25. We have this kind of normal gap that goes all the way down, and then more than 9 months is usually a nice chunk of folks. 21% of you, 13% already have your A+ certification. So welcome. You're just here hanging out, trying to get those continuing education units, or at least hedging your bets for those. So it looks like a lot of you are in there now. You're able to see, I see everybody's logging in and able to answer some of these things. So it's time to test your knowledge. And let's get going with this on the actual questions that you might find on the exam. And by the way, the exam that is out, the 801, 802, 901, 902, we will talk about near the end of this today. We'll go through a lot of details and talk about what those things are that you should be ready for. Let's go to our first question then. Let's pop this up on the screen and go to, I think I have the right answer here for you to answer. Here it is. So our first question of the day, really our second, because the other one was how long have you been studying? So we'll go with question number 2. Which of these are most associated with QoS, whatever that is? So for those of you that have been watching these study groups, you know that I like to ask these questions that have multiple answers on them. You have to kind of think through a couple of steps to get to the correct answer. And the answers I have for you are these. Which of these are most associated with QoS? Is it DHCP, 802.1q, RAID, DSCP, SMB, APIPA? One of these, there's a lot there, will be most associated with QoS. This is something the exam does as well. It prompts you with something you need to know, because I didn't really tell you what QoS was. You're going to have to figure that out on your own. And then in the answer, they give you a lot of things that you need to know what those are as well. And in this case, I'm even asking the question, which are most associated with QoS. It's possible that there could be some type of association, some lower level association with QoS in some of these other answers. But whenever you see this on the exam, one of these will always jump out at you. And in fact, this is a very good example of that. One of these questions should really jump out at you. If you think you know the answer, go to Socrative.com. You can go to the student login and go to room name Professor Messer. And again, or at least I haven't said it, I don't think, but no mention in the chat room. Don't tell us in the chat room. And stop Googling QoS. I saw you. Well, I didn't see you. I'm pretending to see you. Don't do that. So let's see what the answer might be with these. Which of these, or how we did with these? Let's find out. I've got a few people that have answered so far. The rest of you are still Googling this to try to figure out I can tell what the answer is. So let's see how we did. And we are all over the place. I think I've told you before, I want to get half of you answering the correct questions somewhere in here. So these are definitely types of protocols that I put on the screen. You can see 32% of you have said DHCP. The next highest is 22% of you with 802.1q. And then you've got other pieces in here as well. 14% is DSCP, kind of a tie for that is API-PA, and then the rest are SMB and RAID. Well, so the real question is, which one of these is this? Do we have any idea what this is? Well, first, let's talk about QoS. QoS stands for Quality of Service. And this has become an extremely important set of parameters, priorities, protocols, and other nonsense about this because we've put so many different kinds of services on our network. We have our normal web browsing, which is not the highest priority service when we're talking about a network. It doesn't require a lot of bandwidth. It doesn't require a lot of real-time view. But then you have other things like voice over IP. Voice over IP is very real-time. If we don't have the best possible service for voice over IP, we're going to have some really bad telephone calls. But what if you're performing a really big download and at the same time using your voice over IP phone? How do you determine which one of these is going to have the most priority? Well, you do that by configuring a setting within a number of different network devices that are kind of globally called quality of service, or QoS. So that is something you will definitely run into. Now, you're going to have equipment. Generally, it's network infrastructure equipment that understands how to configure and set things in this QoS world. This QoS piece will be something that uses a lot of different mechanisms too. There's no single one way to provide quality of service on the network. There are many different ways to provide QoS. One of the more popular kinds is something using DSCP. This is a differentiated services code point. It's a protocol that is within the IP packets themselves. It's a type of service field in IPv4 and in IPv6. It's built into something called the traffic class octet. It's a section of the protocol going over the network. It's built into the entire network and how it operates. So the only way to really break this down for you then is to find a piece of equipment that's going to be able to do this. You can even set QoS at the operating system level as well, but of course the networking equipment has to be able to work with this. But you could tell the operating system, I want to set certain policies, certain applications that will use certain parameters for quality of service. So that's one that really does become very useful to know. So the real key here, the one we're really most interested in this particular question, is one dealing with a protocol that's very focused on quality of service. So if we go back and look at how we did, we can see DHCP 38%. That is not the correct answer. The next highest was 802.1q, which is used for VLANs. Well, VLANs are useful, and it's very common to see those on people's networks. But this is not the one that would be most associated with QoS. In this particular case, if you answer D, which is DSCP, the differentiated services code point, then you got this answer absolutely right. So the 13% of you knew your QoS. You were able to get that going. So I gave you kind of a tough one there at the very beginning of the year, didn't I? But it's okay. We can bounce back from this. And most importantly, if you got this one wrong, now you know the answer. So if this one ever comes up on an exam, anything dealing with QoS and those types of things, you'll be able to answer that one much better. Well, let's shift gears then. Let's do something else. Let's move to something that might be a different kind of question. So I have another question for you, this one dealing with another odd acronym, which asks, with which of these troubleshooting tasks would you be most likely to use SFC? So now we have to know SFC and how it operates and how it works. Another one where it's a two-step process to understand this. And I have a number of possible answers for you, of course. So with which of these troubleshooting tasks would you be most likely to use SFC? Would it be repairing a faulty master boot record? Would it be reverting the OS configuration to a particular date and time? Would it be finding and replacing corrupted operating system files? Would it be resetting a UEFI password? Would it be checking hard drive sectors for physical errors? One of those is going to be the right answer. And for those of you, yes, in the chat room, that is a question that you might find on your 802/902 exam. If you think you know the answer, don't answer in the chat room. Instead, go to Professor Messer's Socrative room. Go to Socrative.com and then go to room name Professor Messer. And you'll be able to answer this one as well. I'm going to take a peek while you're doing this and see how you're doing. I think we're doing pretty well with this one. Most of you are bouncing back quite nicely with this one. Well done. You're going to run into this quite a bit. I think if you've ever been in the case, I'll give you a little hint. No, I'm not going to give you a hint. We'll talk more about because if I give you the hint, I've given away the whole thing. So we're just going to see how you did. A lot of you just answered right away with this one. So let's see how you did. I'm going to flip back over to this answer and see if this is one where we're doing pretty well. We had a number of people answer this, so let's see how we did. Okay. Well, 77% of you said it's finding and replacing corrupted operating system files, but 15% of you, double digits, said we would use this to check hard drive sectors for physical errors. And then we got single digits for all of the other ones. And yes, tech support will tell you to use SFC quite a bit, especially if somebody in tech support feels that there might be something that has overwritten or corrupted your system files, especially malware. SFC stands for System File Checker. This performs an integrity scan of the operating system. So that's what you want to do, is to be able to really get into the OS and have your system check itself. Go through all of the important system files and make sure those system files are going to be able to be in the normal state that you would expect, in their original state, that nothing has gone in and changed any of your system files, modified them, overwritten them with a brand new file. It will do a check of every single system file and make sure that the operating system itself remains intact. And if it isn't, it will fix a file. It will find the one that is not what it's expecting, and it will overwrite that with the original system file. So it becomes very useful to have this. And as you can see, it even puts up a message where it's going to tell you what files have been found and which haven't. There's a log file that's written, so it makes it very easy to go through and figure out those pieces. So the system file and resolving corrupted OS files is exactly the right answer. The 76% of you got this one absolutely right. So if you answered C, finding and replacing corrupted operating system files, that would be the correct response. Well done with that one. Well, we've gone through operating system troubleshooting and some networking already. So let's move on to a question dealing with hardware. I think it's about time to do something like that. So the question I have for you is more of this. What connector is this? What's that? What the heck is this thing? And so now we need to be able to answer, what connector is this? And as you can see, I have a number of different responses for you. Is this FireWire? Is it component video? Is it SATA? Is it HDMI? Is it DisplayPort? Is it eSATA? Is it RCA? Which of these could it possibly be? So I want you to go through and figure these pieces out as well. I'll give you a better picture of this so you can really have a look. What is this thing? There's a nice big shot of it. So maybe you can figure those pieces out. So this is one where we really do have to go through these pieces. While we're doing that, in the chat room, someone was asking about the scoring of CompTIA. There's some cases where when you're scoring, there may be questions that have multiple answers. And the question was, if you answer it halfway right, do you get partial credit? CompTIA has answered publicly recently on this and said, generally, no, you don't get partial credit. Although there are some questions, very few, but some of their performance-based questions where you could possibly get partial credit on that particular question. So it was almost a non-answer, I would agree, but at least there are some cases where a partial answer would be appropriate. So that's at least a little bit of tidbit. Normally, we don't hear anything about we don't really hear about the exam details. CompTIA keeps that information very close to the vest. So that was interesting that we were able to get that piece of information. So let's go back to the question and what we have there. We can always go through and figure out those pieces. And remember, no answering in the chat room. We don't want anybody to be swayed by you. Pretend you don't know. Pretend you're at the exam. So let's see how we answered with this one. We have 50% said DisplayPort, 18% is number 2, HDMI. 15% eSATA. 8% said FireWire. Nobody said component video. Very few people said RCA. And 8% said SATA. So which one could it possibly be in this particular case? Well, this is definitely DisplayPort. This is a DisplayPort. In fact, you'll find 2 different kinds of DisplayPort that you need to know, both for your 800 series exam and your 900 series exam. Make sure you go through and know those as well. This is where, when you get into these pieces and trying to figure out the specifics of it, you really need to know what these look like. It's an important part of the exam objectives, is you absolutely need to know what these things are going to look like when you run into them. This is very much a standard, so you'll find DisplayPort on a lot of different operating systems, a lot of different displays. In the chat room, a lot of people, I agree, a lot of people used to associate the mini DisplayPort interface with Apple. They were one of the first organizations to provide Thunderbolt and mini DisplayPort access, but it is not an Apple standard. It is not exclusive to Apple at all. You will find mini DisplayPort on many different platforms, on many different displays, and on many different motherboards. So this is one across all different operating systems. You'll find DisplayPort in use, very much like you'll find VGA in use or HDMI. This is just another display type that you'll run into. What's interesting about DisplayPort is it includes both the video display inside of it along with data. So you can not only connect up video, but there's also the opportunity in at least a Thunderbolt mode of this to also send some data along with this, which is kind of nice as well. It's also compatible with HDMI and DVI with just a passive adapter. You don't need to do any special conversion. So they even thought, what are we going to do for these older systems? Well, we can just have a single cable with DisplayPort on one side and HDMI on the other, and it's going to work, which is great to be able to do that. Very, very useful to have those pieces there. Obviously, the DisplayPort interface is different than HDMI. The DisplayPort interface is different than DVI, but it's now just a passive connector to be able to connect those systems up. So it makes it easy. If you've ever had to deal with different connectors, having to do conversions between video formats, you'll know how nice that is to have that functionality as well. So back to how we did. Those of you that answered DisplayPort, absolutely right. Everybody else is, well, absolutely wrong. 50% of you, though, got this one right. That's what I'm shooting for. If you didn't get it right, though, now you know what the difference is. One of the things that I notice on mine, being able to use these DisplayPort, and you do have to watch out for this. Most DisplayPort connectors have these locks built into them. So you can't just go to the back of the display and pull it out like you could with HDMI or another type. You have to push down on that connector. So don't start yanking on that connection. You want to make sure you push that connector in to release it, and then it will come out of there. Very, very useful to have that there. Well, there's so many different connectors, aren't there? There are a lot of different things that you need to know for your exam. And whenever I start looking through the exam objectives for A+, the exam objectives are enormous. There are so many different things that you need to know. So one of the things that I've done is to create for you a set of course notes that might allow you to have everything in one place. You could, of course, go through and write your own notes, but there's so much content. One of the things I've done is to create just this PDF file that has everything in it that you might need to know. This is one that you can find out more about it on my website. The 800 series notes are at this link at professormesser.com/A+CN, and my 900 series course notes are on the site as well. So that becomes useful to be able to do that. Let's whenever I start going through and trying to figure out how to keep all of these things and being able to work through them, it becomes a bit of a challenge because it's so broad in concept. There's so much there that you need to be able to work through. I've got the A+ course notes right here. Let me see if I can pop these up on my screen and work through them. There is so much just on a single exam. Let me give you an idea of what I mean. These are the 901 course notes. They're 19 pages long. And I tried to put every graphic that I had, all the pictures that I made, I put them in here so that you'll have access to them. Let's scroll down to those. You can see the rate information, sockets, Here's the interfaces. So there I've got these really nice high resolution, beautiful graphics. There's the DisplayPort that we were just looking at. So all of this is in these course notes. This is also a great way if you're interested in helping support the site. You know that I don't take donations on my site, but this is a great way to help support what we're doing. So if this is something you think might help with you, absolutely. Go out to the site and have a look at these course notes. Maybe it's something you can use as well. I really like these course notes, and the 800 series course notes and the 900 series course notes are very different. So make sure you get the course notes that are going to be specific to the exam that you plan to take, along with everything else that you're doing. If you're buying a book, if you're getting anything for the exams, make sure you get it for the right one. If you're going to take the 800 series exam, get the 800 series piece. If you're going to get the 900 series exam, get that piece as well. So make sure that you go through those pieces and be able to do that. These course notes, I think, are a nice thing to do, a nice thing to have just before you walk into your exam. They don't replace the videos. They don't replace your book. But they are a great reference. So make sure you go through those pieces as well. I've got more questions for you. So let's go through and let's see if you can answer these too. This one is a 900 series question. So for those of you that are studying for your 900 series exam, this is one that you're going to need to know. This is not in the 800 series exam. And this too. So make sure that you go through and if you're on the 800 series and you're studying for that, don't worry so much about those pieces. Go through and see if you can know what it is. Go through the process of understanding this, but don't worry if you're studying for your 800 series, this is something you're not going to find on your exam. This is the only one I have today that is specific to the 900 series. So I think that's very useful to have. So on which port would you commonly find AFP? Another networking question for you. Is it TCP 445? Is it TCP 548? Is it UDP 53? Is it UDP 548? Or is it TCP 427? So that's one that you should always go through and figure out the pieces. That's one where knowing these port numbers can be a little bit of a challenge. I think whenever I start working through trying to understand concepts like this, it helps if I can apply them. So if there's a chance that you can apply AFP, then you'll be in good shape. So the chat room's even asking, what in the world are you talking about AFP? Well, that's the question. I'm not going to tell you what AFP is until we go through the process of understanding it. You have to know what AFP is so that you can then go through and answer this particular question. This is one where knowing these ports is such a challenge. If you've never worked with port numbers, then you're not going to be able to work through any of these ports. It's really just rote memorization. So it helps if you have some type of lab that you can go through, if you can go through and understand what the differences are with these, start up a firewall and send this traffic through and see if you can block it. And if you can block it, then you'll be able to know exactly what that is. So make sure you go through that piece too and figure those out whenever you're working through that piece. So let's see how we did with this one, AFP in this particular case. How did we do? Well, we're all over the place. I think most of you in the chat room are saying this well. That's, hey, I don't know what in the world you're talking about. You're going to need to help me out with this one and get it there. And you're right. I think we were all over the place with this particular one as well. So this is one where knowing these port numbers is really useful. There is a list of every port number that you need to know in the certification exam objectives. Make sure that you have this list that is in the exam objectives. If you know everything in the exam objectives, you're going to pass your exam. So make sure you go through that and understand those pieces of it. Let's find out more about AFP. Since those of you in the chat room were asking about AFP and trying to figure out what these things were, I think it's useful to go through this and know what those pieces are. It becomes very useful to work through these if you had a way to be able to work through those and be able to have them available. AFP is the Apple filing protocol. This is how Mac OS, specifically Mac OS 10, and in some ways some earlier versions of Mac OS, are able to do things that we're accustomed to doing with file transfers, with sending files and viewing files in different places. This is whenever I start working through the differences in operating systems it turns out the operating systems are more similar than you might think. So whenever I start working through them, especially something like Windows, you look at the file manager and you're able to transfer files between systems. You're able to find different shares that are available. You're able to rename files. Well, we need the same type of mechanisms on Mac OS. On Windows, it's SMB is the protocol that's used for that. On Apple, AFP does a similar thing. You can almost think of them as a like for like, an apples and apples comparison, if you will. This is one where whenever I start working through this, it becomes a little bit of a challenge to remember the port numbers. So make sure you really get these. And TCP port 548 is the one specifically for Apple. This is not FTP. This is more like what you would get in a file manager. In Apple, whenever you're working with it, it's something like you're working through the file managers for Finder. So in Windows, it's your Windows Explorer. And it is definitely the Finder when you're in a Mac OS environment. And for those of you in the 900 series exam, you have to be able to use not only a Mac, but also Linux, and you'll have certainly the Windows questions as well. So it's very simple whenever you start working with that. Whenever you start looking for services, there's a whole different set of protocols that are used. SLP does that. So that becomes something you also have to know for the exam and being able to work through that. There is TCP 427 and UDP 427. They fill in the names of where all those services are. Very useful to have that as well. So if you're doing any type of file management in the operating system, built into the operating system, copying files, deleting files, moving files between systems, you are using AFP. So TCP port 548 is what is this. AFP is not on TCP port 427. That is SLP. So make sure you differentiate between those and get those right. So TCP port 548 is where we want to be. If you answered B, 40% of you, so most of you got that there. Nice job on that, having that available. To have that there. Good job. You got that one absolutely right. You can see TCP 445, 53. The others that are here are either port numbers that I made up or they're port numbers for other services. So make sure you go through those and be able to work out the differences for all of that as well. I think we did pretty good. If 40% of you got that one absolutely right, somebody was studying these things for the exam. So good job on that and having those available. I'm going to change some settings here on my side, so if everyone can bear with me just a moment, turn on a few things. Let's do another question, shall we? I've got more for you. Here we go. So, which of these would be the best choice for encrypting the content of email messages? One of these is going to be, so now we're in security, and there's certainly a lot of security on the A+ exam. An entire section on the 802 and the 902. Whenever I start going through the pieces of the problems with understanding security, it's so broad. There's so many different components that you need to know. So make sure you go through these pieces and learn how security is associated with these. I think that's where whenever I start working with these, it becomes really useful to have that there. I think there's a lot that you should work through on the email side as well. And we're going to get into email a lot with mobile devices on the 901 exam, so make sure you know all of your mobile devices as well. Well, the options I have, the best choice for encrypting the content of email messages is it SNMP, IMAP, SMIME, SMTP, or POP3? Which one of these is going to be the best choice for encrypting the content of email messages? That'd be very useful to know, wouldn't it? Especially if you want to keep things private. You want to be able to do that. One of those protocols, they're all protocols, are going to be the best choice for encrypting email messages. This is one where you get into a lot of questions about setting up encryption. And you're going to be responsible for this as the administrator, because encryption is not going to be able to be something you just turn a switch and it's turned on. There's a number of different things that have to be configured properly. So you have to make sure that you enable it and get things going properly to be able to run it. And you'll certainly need to be familiar with these protocols to be able to do that. Let's see how we did with this particular question, being able to work through it. How do we do? Well, we are all over the place again. Whenever I start working through these and trying to get these going, this is where it really becomes a challenge. And you can see 35% of you said SMIME. So if we had to go with the number one, it's not a majority, but it's a pretty high number. Another high number, 24% said SMTP. And you can say 17% SNMP, and then it falls off from there. This is whenever I start working through this, it becomes a bit of a challenge, especially with security and knowing all these things. When you're sending email, you want things to be secure. And if you're sending email through something like SMTP, it's in the clear. It's a standard way of transferring files and email messages between point A and point B, and SMTP is very good for that. SMTP, the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, is very commonly used when we're sending out email messages to a mail server or when mail servers are sending information back and forth between each other. So, of course, whenever we get into more detailed mail exchanges, something like Microsoft Exchange and other third-party devices and third-party applications as well, there is a standardized protocol called Secure Multipurpose Internet Mail Extensions, or SMIME. SMIME is built into your email agent, the one you're using, your email program, like Microsoft Exchange. And so you're able to encrypt within email, send that out. So once it's sent out, even if it's sent via SMTP or POP3, or it's sent in methods that are normally insecure, what you're sending has already been encrypted. So it really doesn't matter how they send the data, it's going to be protected. So SMIME is the one we are most interested in this particular case. And if you look at the answers we gave, you guys did pretty good with this one. SMIME was 38% of what we were looking at. This is one wherever I start working through these and trying to figure out how do I get this particular piece of email protected, this is the way I do it. So that's whenever I work through, that's pretty important. It's very useful to have that there. So those of you that answered C, SMIME, 38%, you did really well. Nice job with that and being able to work through those pieces of it. I think there's a lot that helps whenever you start working with protocols, working with security, working with the operating systems themselves. There are a number of things that really help if you can get some hands-on. And so my friends at GTSlearning have done exactly that. They've created these live labs that allow you to log on to an operating system, use it live in the cloud as if it's right in front of you at your desk. Very useful to have that there. So whenever I start, I'll bring up some of these live labs on my screen so you could see what I mean. It's a way that you can simply have all of these operating systems, these labs and things that we need to do right in front of you. Let's find one. In fact, let me find one that is more of a maintenance task so you could see some of these pieces. Well, I have one that's a Linux as well. So let me bring you up to a Linux one so you can see what I'm doing on my screen. I have a lab. It's kind of hard to see on the right side. I can pop this out if I want to and go through the labs themselves and break them down. And I've got these servers that I can simply look at these servers and start powering them on as if I had 5 different devices sitting in front of me and I'm hitting the start button on every single one of them. And they're starting up in the cloud. And so I've got some domain controllers. I have some Windows devices. I have Linux devices in here. And I'm effectively now got all of these machines preloaded, pre-configured with the operating systems, and set up for the labs and being able to work through this. The lab is already here. So you can step by step go through each one of these labs. There are graphical views that you could use. There are Windows operating systems that you can use. And these are not simulations or emulations. They are the actual operating systems. So if you wanted to even deviate from the lab a little bit and try experimenting and doing other things, you can do that. What's also nice about this is that it doesn't require any additional software. I'm running this in my browser, running it as if it's just a normal browser front end. It's using HTML5, which most of our modern browsers use. So it's very simple to be able to do this. I love having this capability. It makes it so easy to be able to get in and work through some of these capabilities. Let's look at these other devices that are out. Here's another one, and you can easily just click between them just by moving back and forth. You can see how fast those are. And these are live systems, so you can go through and use them as if you're using an actual operating system in Windows. You can modify what's here. You can I'll start up the browser. I'll start up File Manager. So everything's here that you might need access to and being able to work through. What's also nice about these is not only are the labs available for you to use, but there is an hour that you could use for this absolutely free. So if you think this might be something you might be able to use instead of setting up all of your own operating systems, go through and do this yourself. You can find out more at professormesser.com/live labs. And if you want special pricing, follow this link. The GTS Learning site also has links to this, but I have special pricing for you that you only get if you follow this link at professormesser.com/live labs. And why not try it for an hour, absolutely free? Maybe it's something that you can use as well to prepare yourself for your A+ certification exam. So hopefully that's something you can use as well. And I want to thank the folks at GTS Learning as well for supporting what we do here at Messer Studios. Let's do another question, shall we? I always get people asking me to do a RAID question, so we're going to do one. We're going to go absolutely through this piece and figure out these RAID questions. And this is one dealing with RAID 1. So the question is, which of these would be the best process for recovering from a single drive failure of a RAID 1 array? So let's see what the possible answers might be. Would I replace the bad drive and rebuild the array? Would I replace all drives in the array and restore from backup? Would I replace the bad drive and restore from backup? Or would I replace all but one of the drives and rebuild the array? One of these is going to be the right one. So maybe we should know about RAID. First, you're going to have to know about RAID 1, and then you're going to need to know, what do I do with RAID 1 and being able to resolve this? If you think you know the answer, go to Socrative.com to the room named Professor Messer, and you can be able to do that as well. Oh, are you running RAID 1? Some folks are running RAID 1 in the chat room. The RAID 1 configuration, I'm running RAID, sort of a modified RAID 5 in my environment here. I have a big RAID array that I have available. In fact, we'll see my RAID array in just a moment when I answer the question and have these here. Let's see how we're doing. In fact, I'm going to take a peek at how we're doing with this. We're doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well with RAID. And this is one I get, probably the top 5 questions I get in a month are RAID questions. Please give us more things about RAID and being able to work through those. So I try to fit more of those in there and being able to work through them. I think that's also a little bit helpful too, to be able to work through those. So let's see how we did. A number of you have already answered. So let's flip over and see how we did with this. Let's look at how do we do. Well, we're split. We're almost a 50-50. 54%, if we had to go with the actual winner, by about 10%, would be to replace the bad drive and rebuild the array. The other half of you said replace the bad drive and restore from backup. So which one of these is it when you're working through it? One of these has got to be the right answer. And really, it's only one of these that you would do is the best process. And you'll notice the question does ask for the best process of recovering from a single drive failure with RAID 1. Well, for your A+ exam, you need to know what to do with RAID. Here's my RAID array. I have a number of disks in my RAID array, a number of drives that are spinning there. If any of these drives goes bad, I need to understand what my next step is. I need to know how to recover from this. Now, because I'm running, in my case, RAID 5, I can lose a drive and keep running. And in fact, with RAID 1, you can lose a drive and keep running as well. This is one thing. When we start looking at how to recover with these questions that you have here, it's important to go through these pieces and know what I should be doing to recover from these. Each RAID version works a little bit different. So make sure that you go through this piece and know this as well. I'm going to take you through these different RAID types, and you can understand if it's a RAID 0, it's one. Let me bring up. There we go. RAID 0 is one where you're striping. There's no redundancy here at all. If you lose a single drive with RAID 0, you've lost all of your data. So with RAID 0, a single drive failure is going to break the array and you will have data loss. So you'll need to not only replace the bad drive, you will have to restore from backup to get all of your data back. Otherwise, you're not going to have access to any of it. On RAID 1, which is the one we're most interested in for this question, you, of course, are going to have more than one disk. There's going to be 2 or more drives to be able to run RAID 1. RAID 1 is mirroring, which means that I will have at least 2 drives and sometimes more, and all of the drives are identical to each other. If we lose a drive, it's okay. We're still up and running. We still have the data. It's not protected because we still might only have a single drive of that data as a copy, but at least we have the data available. In fact, what usually happens with RAID 1 is you get a notification that a drive has failed. And I've walked into environments before where they had RAID 1 running, and RAID 1 had been running with a single drive in this degraded mode for months. They didn't even realize they lost the drive. So we had to very quickly replace the drive before we lost the only one that was left. That means that we don't have to restore from backup. We simply replace the drive. RAID recognizes there's a new hard drive that's been installed, and it starts to rebuild the array. It starts copying everything over from one side to the other. Makes it very easy to be able to use this. RAID 5 is one where I'm doing striping. And again, if I just lose one of these, I'll be able to get that to operate properly. I can simply replace it and plug it in again. And RAID 10 is a little different. That is one where I have striping, but I'm mirroring the striping. So that's a little bit different. In our case, it was RAID 1 we were most interested in. If you're interested in these other RAID types, I have videos on RAID and some of the previous study groups. I talk a lot about parity, how parity works. I talk about the different RAID types. You can always go back and look at some of those as well. So let's see how we did with this one, which would be the best process for recovering from a single drive failure of RAID 1, which is mirroring. Well, since I'm mirrored, I'm not losing anything if I lose a single drive, which means all I have to do is replace the bad drive and rebuild the array. That means if you answered A, the 53% of you got that one absolutely right. So nice job on that one to be able to get those pieces and have it there. I like having those different capabilities and the different options on my RAID arrays and being able to work through them. That's one that does come in handy. Now, if you are watching this for continuing education credit, make sure that you know the keyword for today, which is RAID 1. You'll have to go to the Contact Us link that's either at the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website and send me a note in there, and somewhere in there put it's the January A+ study group and put the code word of RAID 1. And then I'll know you watched this, and I'll be able to send you an email back that certifies that you did indeed watch this study group. This is one that will come in handy too. So rebuilding an array, for those of you in the chat room that are wondering about these terms about rebuilding the array, is when the RAID array resets itself and gets itself back to a normal protected state. So if you have RAID 1 or RAID 5 or RAID 10 and you're replacing bad drives, it's going to effectively write all of the things that needs to be written to those new drives to make it whole again. Usually this is automatic. When you plug in the new drive, RAID recognizes it's a new drive. It knows that you need to be able to recover this array and rebuild itself, and it begins the rebuilding process. In fact, the rebuilding process can sometimes take days because it is copying over a lot of data, or it's redetermining what the parity segments are and writing those. It can take a very long time to rebuild the array. But generally, it's one that is something you don't even have to push a button. It just does it. There are some RAID arrays that require some user intervention, and you can even configure your RAID to do that, where you're clicking a button and it's going to go through the process of working through those. So that one can be a little bit more difficult because you as an administrator have to go in and start the process. Almost no RAID arrays do that, though. They're almost all automatic, which is kind of nice, and being able to work through those. So let's continue on. I have more questions for you. I have an operating system question. Is this an operating system question? It might be. I have a question anyway. It seems to be a troubleshooting task anyway, being able to work through these pieces. Let's see if we know what these troubleshooting tasks are. The question is, which of these would be the best troubleshooting tasks for a missing NTLDR error? Let's see if we know the answer. And I gave you two different ways for troubleshooting tasks with this one. A missing NTLDR error. What could it possibly be? No Googling NTLDR, no answering in the chat room. If you think you know the answer, you can go over to Socrative.com to the Professor Messer room. The options available are here. Is the possible answer replace, or I'm asking to pick two. The possible two answers: replace the system drive, check for an incorrect boot device, run startup repair, rebuild the MBR, check drive cables. All of these sound similar. They all sound like they all could be the best troubleshooting tasks for NTLDR. Well, it's supposed to sound like that. Maybe you know what the possible answers are. You need to pick two of these: replace the system drive, check for an incorrect boot device, run startup repair, rebuild the MBR, or check the drive cables. It's got to be one of these, right? And being able to work with those. So hopefully you'll be able to figure out these pieces as well. This is whenever I get into these and start working through them. It's helpful if you know what it isn't. You can start crossing out some of these that really become more of a challenge of knowing and working through this. Some of you may have even seen this before. So this may not be something that's new for what you're doing. I'm going to take a peek and see how we're doing with these. I see we're a little torn on this question. This is one to be able to work through that. This is also one that you will run into. This is a problem you're absolutely going to run into eventually. So you should know how to recover from this. If you have not run into it already, you're going to. So just prepare yourself. And knowing the answer to this one's going to help as well. So which of these would be the best troubleshooting task for missing NTLDR? Let's see how we answered with this one. How do we do? Well, we got a tie, the three-way tie for first. 3% said replace the system drive. So none of you guys really were able to work through that one and have it figured out. So nobody really bit on that one. Check the drive cables. 11% said, no, not really. We're really tied for these three. Check for an incorrect boot device, run startup repair, and rebuild the MBR. But it's only two. We want two of these, not three of these. So which ones are these going to be, and how is this going to work? Where the real key for a missing NT loader is really what that stands for. This is the boot loader for Windows. You don't really see the NT loader in the more modern Windows operating systems, but it does become useful when you're working with some of the older operating systems, or you've connected a boot device that was formatted with one of the older Windows operating systems, and that's part of the answer that we're looking at. In fact, you can't see because my head is here. Let me move my head. You can see I say the main Windows bootloader is missing. Check your boot device. That's because somebody might format a drive or have a drive set up in your system, whether it's one that is connected to a USB drive or a flash drive, and it may be formatted, but it may not have a boot sector on it for Windows. And in those particular cases, your system may be set up in the BIOS to boot from this external drive that you've now plugged in, but it can't find the bootloader for Windows, and it gives you this error. So simply unplugging your external drive can solve this particular problem, or you can go into your BIOS and say you need to absolutely not go into this, and you need to start this up and be able to start from a different drive other than this external drive as well. It becomes useful to have that there. The other thing that you might want to look at, the other thing that if this really is a problem with your actual system drive, it's the one that you're booting Windows from, you don't have anything else plugged in, there's no additional optical drives in your system, there's no USB, there's no external hard drives plugged in, then your problem might actually be with your operating system drive. And in that particular case, you can go through this and run a startup repair. That's one of the easiest ways to fix this problem, where it will find all of the files that it's missing during this Windows startup, and it will repair them in your operating system. You could also, if you know what files need to be replaced, you could replace them manually. If you really know what you're doing, you can get into the console. You can really go to the command line and start copying files around. I have found, though, the Windows startup repair works exceptionally well. It is so nice to be able to use startup repair. You click a button, it checks everything for you, not just the NT loader or the boot sector of your operating system, but it checks everything else as well. So that becomes really useful when you're getting in there and being able to work through those pieces. The NT loader is one you will run into, and usually it's because you've left a USB drive or really an external hard drive or SSD plugged into your system. That's where the problem usually is when you're working through it. So you're going to want to go through it, figure those pieces out as well. So those are your two options for this one. One of them is to check for an incorrect boot device. So someone has that external drive plugged in, or you can run startup repair. Those are your two best troubleshooting tasks for fixing the missing NT loader error. You would not be rebuilding the master boot record. The master boot record is where your drive, the drive that's running from the very beginning on your system, is now looking at all the different partitions and determining where it should go to start the operating system. You're already past that point. If you're getting an error that says it's a missing NT loader, you're already past that, the MBR. Your MBR is not the issue. It's already now hopped to the operating system. It's hopped to the right partition. It's hopped to the operating system files, and it says, okay, let's load up the OS. Wait, this isn't working. And that's why it becomes really, really useful to be able to do that startup repair and being able to work through those pieces, especially with getting those troubleshooting tasks there and having that there. It becomes very, very useful. There is a lot to the A+ exam and being able to work through the details of the A+ exam. And so there were a number of questions I got this week around the A+ certification. But one of the things that I can't say enough with these is to get the exam objectives. The exam objectives have a list of everything you need to know for the exam. You can find these objectives on the CompTIA website. Go to CompTIA's, or just go to Google and type in CompTIA exam objectives. Or you can go to professormesser.com/objectives. I have a redirect that takes you over to CompTIA's website. If you're taking the 800 series, download the 800 series objectives. If you're taking the 900 series exam, download the 900 series objectives. Make sure that you have these and that you've read through them and use them as a checklist. If you know everything that's in these exam objectives, you will pass your exam. It's virtually guaranteed. I don't know how you can't pass if you know everything that's in these exam objectives. CompTIA stays very close to these exam objectives. They don't deviate very far from these, if at all. So it's kind of nice to be able to know exactly what's going to be expected of you when you go through these different exams. Make sure you have these exam objectives available. And I say it in every time we do one of these, I say this, and it's really important that you do keep that in mind when you're working through all of these different things that you should know. There are a number of differences between the 800 series exam and the 900 series exam. And in this last week, I created, not only there's a document I wrote on my website, but I created a video that steps through these pieces as well. If you're interested in knowing what the differences are between the 800 series and the 900 series, make sure you go out and have a look at that at professormesser.com/FAQ, the frequently asked questions, and have those there. There are other people that have said, well, I've taken the 801, but now there's the 900 series exams. I kind of like the 900 series content. Can I just take the 902 and I'll have my A+? No, you may not. You need to pass the 801 and 802, or you need to pass the 901 and the 902. You cannot mix and match. So make sure you do that. The certificates that you get, whether you take the 800 series or whether you take the 900 series, they are not going to be outdated. There's no difference between them. You get exactly the same certification. You just have to make sure that you take exactly the same two. You take the 800, the 801, 802, or you take the 901, 902, and that you don't mix and match between them. Also important is that the 800 series exams will be retired in June. So if that is the case, you will be in trouble if you don't make it. So if you've taken the 801, make sure you get that 802 done before the end of June. Or if you're taking the 802, make sure you get the 801. You can do them in any order, of course, and being able to do that. The 900 series objectives are absolutely on the website. Make sure that you go out to CompTIA and do that. It's very useful to have that there too. I think there's a lot of things you can go through to be able to work through those pieces. Let's also answer a question that came in about the 900 series exam. So a lot of people said, I've got the 800 series. I've taken the 800 and I've passed it. I have my A+ certification. The 900 series exams are out. I have to go take these, right? No, you absolutely do not have to take the 900 series exams. In fact, if you already have your A+ certification, you probably won't have to take another A+ exam ever, as long as you continue to perform the proper tasks required to keep that exam or keep that certification updated. So make sure you look at the continuing education requirements for the exam. You could take the 900 series exam if you have taken and passed the 800 and you want to take the 901 and 902 as a way to maintain your A+. Well, you could. That's a hard way to do it, though. There are much easier ways to maintain your certification. So make sure you go through that and understand those pieces. It's an important part of this is maintaining and keeping it updated. Otherwise, in 3 years, you're not going to have an exam available. You're not going to have that certification available. It's going to expire. You don't want that to happen either. Well, this brings us kind of to the end already of what was seems very short. We go through these in an hour. And it seems very difficult to go through these pieces and have that there. This is one wherever I start going through and understanding what should I be doing. Well, I've got a list of these, what you should be doing. Make sure you check things out on Twitter. Go to professormesser.com/Twitter. You can go out to YouTube as well, professormesser.com/YouTube. Check out my course notes. Make sure you get the right ones for the 800 or the 900 series course notes. Folks at GTS Learning, I want to thank them as well. At professormesser.com/live labs. You can get your free hour. Make sure you take advantage of that as well. And of course, I do these every month. You can go through, and next week we're going to do a Network Plus study group. The week after that, we'll do Security Plus. And we'll keep going over and over at professormesser.com/calendar. So that'd be a nice thing to have there as well. There's so much to do, so many things to go through, and being able to step through the A+ certification. I appreciate you sending all of the questions to me every month. Thanks for being in the chat. And even during the week, I'm there almost all the time in the chat room. Thanks for joining us there and doing that as well. And check out the calendar at professormesser.com/calendar, and you'll see we've got another A+ study group next month as well. And we'll just keep doing them until you're just tired of hearing about it. So hopefully that's not going to be anytime soon. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everyone. Well, let's open up the phone lines. The phone lines are here to be able to work through that. It was a pretty good session here. I didn't get through as many questions as I wanted, but we will be able to do that and being able to work through those pieces. And a number of you were saying, hey, I wasn't able to see things very well. Well, that's all about you. Everything here I'm sending to YouTube at 720p. So you could also change it in your browser maybe to 720p as well. That might help you a bit and get those going. Let me open up the phone lines and getting those available. There's a lot there. Or you can ask questions in the chat room as well. Let me get these phone lines going. And this will be a moment as I go through this piece. I don't have a big crew here doing all of this, so I'm going to call in and be able to answer some of these things that are on the screen. I need to start my show up.
Please enter your...
Yes, I need to put something in here so that you will be happy with me, Mr. Skype. What number do I put in? I put in something like this.
Your 6-digit PIN number.
Oh, 6-digit PIN number. The redundant 6-digit PIN number. Let's put that in. Okay, I think that all works. It's always nice to be able to have that there and being able to work through those pieces. Let's see. We have some folks that are calling in. For those of you that are interested in joining the phone lines, here we are right here. You, of course, can call in and have this here as well at 855-785-7545. That's 855-785-RJ45. It's another nice thing to have there on those pieces. Well, let's see, some of you are trying to call in while you're getting set up over there. There's questions in the chat room. You're welcome to ask those as well. We had a lot of questions this month, obviously, on the differences between the exams. Everybody is trying to figure out, should I take the 800? Should I take the 900? It's up to you, of course. I always recommend you take the latest version of the exam. I think that's just a good thing to do. It's a good method to have that there and have those pieces available. So it looks like people are trying to call in. It looks like some folks are having a problem with that. So you're, of course, welcome to answer in the chat room as well. So make sure you go through that and you'll be able to answer some of those too. Yeah, make sure you know about the performance-based questions. People keep asking me about those. Let me bring up on the YouTube CompTIA when they first introduced these performance-based questions, didn't give people a lot of guidance on what these actually were. So the CompTIA has on their YouTube channel a way that you could see what these performance-based questions are about. And it's from a video called Taking a CompTIA Exam. We're going to turn down the noise so you can see this. So you've got a number of things here. They step you through. You obviously can't hear what they're saying, but here we go. We've got the CompTIA exam that's here. They step through what the exam looks like. I don't think they give us a calculator on the A+, but you can at least see what the exam looks like, fill in the blank questions. They've got some where you have to drag a picture around with drag and drop questions. They may give you a picture, an exhibit, and you have to answer a question based on what you see in the exhibit, or they might pop you into a command line. So I love this. At least gives you a feel. If you've never taken a CompTIA exam before, it's nice to at least know what's expected of you so you don't run into any weirdness whenever you show up for the exam. This is called Taking a CompTIA Exam, and you can just go out to the YouTube and search for Taking the CompTIA Exam. You should be able to go through those pieces and being able to work through those. Whenever I start looking at what I need to know, that's where I usually start. I want to know what I'm going to walk in on and getting that there. So it's useful to have that. Well, let's go to the calls. Let's see if we can get some of these going. The 937 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Oh, hi. My name's Karen.
Hey, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
I was just curious how the A Plus and Network Plus, Security Plus, they always have to be renewed every 3 years.
They do.
There used to be a Storage Plus. Is that being retired, or has it been retired?
I don't think Storage, well, actually, I'm not sure. Actually, Storage Plus, they did talk about it being retired. I always mix up Storage Plus and there's a healthcare IT certification. And last year, not the end of last year, the end of the year before last, in 2014, CompTIA said, we're going to retire that. And then they said, no, we're not going to. But I think they did with Storage Plus. I think they finally decided that Storage Plus was going to be one they retire. But the question is about renewals and CompTIA. They have on their website, you really have to hunt for it. There is a page that goes through the renewal part. If you go to the section of the website that deals with certification, so it's certification.comptia.org, under continuing education, they've tried so hard to update the continuing education section so that it is a little bit easier to view, but it's still a bit of a challenge to figure out, what do I do? How do I renew? And there's all kinds of different options on here to renew. But they do have a section on here that talks about renewing with a higher level CompTIA certification. And there's a link you can click into, and they give you a little chart that says, how can I renew? What should I use to renew? And they have a little chart that starts with A+ at the bottom, then Network Plus, Mobility Plus, Security Plus, Cloud Plus, and CASP, which is their Advanced Security Practitioner. So they've spelled it out. You kind of have to hunt for it, negotiate your way through the maze that is the continuing education section on the CompTIA website. But those are the ones that can help you update or maintain these certifications. There is also other exams that can give you partial credit. And if you click through any of these, for instance, I'll click A+, and you can see what different exams are available to upgrade those. So nothing upgrades an A+. Network Plus will upgrade an A+. Security Plus will upgrade Network Plus and A+. So they'll give you the details on the website of exactly what you can do. There are also exams you can take elsewhere. You don't have to take CompTIA's exams to renew your certification. You could go elsewhere and take a Microsoft exam, a Cisco exam, and exams from many other places. But if you do that, you have to pay the annual maintenance fees. If you take a CompTIA exam, you don't have to pay anything. So that may be the deciding factor. Do you have a certification that you're trying to get renewed?
Actually, all three, the A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. I obtained A+ in 2013 and Network Plus, Security Plus in 2014.
Okay.
So I was thinking about getting other certifications knocked out. The one I'm looking at was Storage Plus, which at the time was what would renew Security Plus.
Right.
And of course, once that was renewed, then that would automatically renew the A+ and Network Plus. But yeah, I was just on the CompTIA website, and I noticed, like, well, where's
It's not
Storage
there.
Plus go?
Where did it go?
Yeah.
That's it. Yep. They got rid of it. So you don't even have a choice anymore. And it does become a challenge when you get your Security Plus. It's tough when you get all the way up to that level and figuring out the piece, because you want to be able to still be able to take the next level. And really, the only level above that is the CASP, the CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner. That would at least renew everything else below it. And then at that point, you're going to have to then, I guess, go outside of CompTIA and be able to do that piece, because at that point you won't have anything else. Or you could just continue to take the newer version of the CASP to renew everything, which doesn't sound like a lot of fun, quite honestly.
No, I wouldn't think so.
No.
But I'm looking at getting the Certified Ethical Hacker certification, so that should take care of everything.
It is,
so.
and that is on the list of third-party certifications that you can use to renew. In fact, let's bring this up while I'm talking about it. You probably won't be able to see it unless you're watching the stream. There's a section at the bottom of the page, Renew with Other IT Industry Certifications, and you can choose, you have your Security Plus, so I'm going to click Security Plus, and they bring up all of these certifications from other places, such as Checkpoint, Cisco, CompTIA, CWMP. There's eCounsel, GIAC, and eCounsel, of course, is the CEH, and there's those 50 credits. HP, IBM, ISACA, ISC Squared, LPI, Microsoft, Oracle, Red Hat, SCP. So you can get so many different kinds of certifications. But of course, the catch that I mentioned earlier, if you take any of these third parties, you're going to have to pay your annual maintenance fees to maintain those other certs, which might be worth it. So it might just, that's the decision you'll have to make when you decide, am I going to renew these or not?
Right. I forgot what the cost is to renew them if I go third party. So I'm sure it says it on the website. I'll just have to look again.
It does, and it is different depending on what the highest level cert is that you have. So the continuing education activities chart, if you have a Security Plus, the yearly fee is $49 to maintain that. In fact, it's $49 for everything except the A+. The A+ is $25 a year to maintain it. So that at least can figure out over a 3-year period, do I really want to pay $150 to keep these or not? And you'll be able to make that decision yourself.
Sounds good. Yeah. Well, that's, I guess, not too bad, I guess, for 3 years. Okay.
Pluses and minuses, right? You have to kind of figure out what makes sense. It's a tough one, because when you get to a certain point, you're using more of the Network Plus and Security Plus. A+ isn't as important. You're just sort of bringing it along for the ride, I guess. And that's just a decision everybody has to make on their own.
Right. I mean, might as well just, well, I worked so hard to get it. Might as well
Right.
keep it, I guess.
That's what I feel about it too. It's worth the $49 a year, and I'll put it in there and I'll just keep it and make sure people know that I have it. I couldn't agree more. So maybe that will help you with your decision as well.
Yes, I just wish Storage Plus was still around. I was looking at Server Plus, but I only think that renews A Plus and Network Plus.
I know they really got rid of it pretty quickly, and then I thought they were going to get rid of the healthcare IT pretty quickly as well, and they changed their mind completely, and I had decided to just keep it going. So maybe they'll bring it back, or maybe they won't. The storage piece, I don't think, had quite the draw they were expecting, and they finally just got rid of it. I think the healthcare has a little more legs under it, but we'll see. You never know what's going to happen.
Yep, but Server Plus should be around to stay, right?
I would think so, yes. So at least you might be able to get some credits by doing that. Or you can, of course, do normal continuing education credits if you're going to trade shows, if you're taking a training class, if you're watching these study groups, you can accumulate your credits that way as well. I understand it's a lot to get 50 credits for Security Plus, but it may be that you're doing things already that you can now apply toward your CEUs, and it may not be as bad as you think.
Oh, okay, great.
Well, good. Well, thanks for calling, and good luck with that.
Yes, thank you.
Take care. That's one of those
Yes,
where
thank you.
I start working through these pieces. I think I just dropped myself instead of dropping the caller. Whenever I start working through these pieces of figuring out what do I do next, there's a big list of those continuing education activities. You may absolutely be doing something right now, like attending a trade show. I attend trade shows all the time. I love to attend a trade show. So that may be something that makes a lot of sense. You could do that yourself. Let's see if I've got the right connection here. There's another caller on the line. Let's bring up the 240 area code and see if I got you on the line. Are you there, caller?
Yes, I'm here, Professor. How are
Hey,
you?
Good. What's your name?
My name is Marcelo.
Hey, Marcella. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
No, Professor, I'm just calling you to thank you very, very much for everything you're doing. And thanks to you and, my studies, I was able to pass the A+ a few months ago.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
And I just, yeah, because all this time I've been watching your videos. Your videos are excellent. They're a really great tool to whoever's going to take the A+ or network. They really help a lot. And it's just a simple call I was giving you to let you know that thanks to you for the hard work that you put in out there, for all of us that we were trying to ahead of our exams or certs, and I was one of the persons that I was keep watching all your videos every day, and finally it paid off, and reading my book and paying just putting more attention to everything that needs to be done, and thank you, Professor, for what you've done, online with all your videos and your tools that you are offering on your website.
My pleasure. So did you take the 800 series exams or did you take the 900 series exams?
I did the 800 because on one of your shows, like 3 months ago, you were saying that after this year's February, I think, it's going to be the 900. So I just did it because I was already studying for the 800. So I just, saying, let's just go ahead and do it because I kind of felt that I was kind of ready, but I just wanted to make sure that, that I have everything down. So at the end, I passed with 890, which was good.
Wow, that is a great score.
It was like, wow.
Let me ask you a question then. This is a question. Don't give me any details of the exam, but this is something that I saw in a message on Reddit this week, is that somebody took their exam and they ran out of time. And what they recommended, and we've talked about this in the study group before, they recommended skipping over the performance-based questions because those are presented first during the exam. And they said go through the multiple choice first, and not only the multiple choice, you can get through them faster and hopefully get before your time runs out, but they might remind you of things that can help you with the performance-based questions. When you took your exam, did you do the performance-based questions first and then go to the multiple choice, or did you reverse it?
Because this was the second time that I was taking. The first time I failed because I ran out of time, and I did the other way. I went to just the multiple questions first, and I put a flag on the ones that, they initially, yes, you're right, initially exam, the first 5 or 7 questions, they just call you right there. And then, if you're not ready or if you're not really, focused, you're going to fail. So what I did, I just put them on flag, and I went just the multiple questions first. I finished with that, and when I look at my time, I had like 20 minutes to complete, so I was able to do it. And then I was done way before the time expired. I had really 8 minutes left to double check and just go over really quick, and all those questions. But I can tell everybody is going to take this is the 800 versions that they did tell you for the first half questions first. I guess that everybody should go to the multiple questions first and then and go over from there, so you won't run out of time.
I think that's a good strategy. I think the more and more I think about that, the more and more stories I hear from people, the more and more I think that should be what everybody should be doing. In fact, CompTIA should be just shifting them so that all the multiple choice are first, and then you do the other is at the end. And I think that's a better way for everyone to do it. Well, that's great. Congratulations, Marcelo. What's next for you? Are you going to do the Network Plus, or are you going in a different direction?
No, definitely. I'm doing probably 2 months already reading the books and watching your videos on Network Plus, and that's my next, which is, I think I'm going to be ready in 3 months. I just want to go and see what it is. And then after that, I've got to get my security. I believe in the years of 2016, I have to get both. So
Good for you.
I'm putting myself 6 months each, so 6 months for Network and 6 months for the Security Plus. So I guess by the end of the year, I'll have them both.
Good for you. That's a great way to do it. I think they're valuable certifications. I think the Network Plus everybody should get. And the Security Plus, if you're planning to do anything in security, that can really help you as well. That's great to hear. And keep us updated as well. I'd love to hear how the progress goes as well, Marcelo.
Oh, sure, Professor. And once again, thank you very much. And I'm happy also because since I got my certification A plus, I was raised a little bit on my salary.
Nice.
So which is, it really pays off at the end of the day because they really look into it. And you are able to tell them, hey, I'm certified tech now. Can you just bump me a little bit? And they say, yeah, sure. And
Nice.
I didn't wait no time. It took me 2 months, and then I got my raise, which is, I was happy. That gave me more, that gives me more support to keep going,
Fantastic. That always helps as well. It's nice getting the cert. It's nice getting a little bit from the certification as well, isn't it?
Thank you, Professor.
Thanks,
you very
Marcella.
much.
Take care. Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
That is fantastic. It's always nice to get that cert, but it's also kind of nice to get the raise at the end of it as well, isn't it? Let's shift gears to 416 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? There's no sound from the 416 area code. Are you there, caller? Caller. I'm going to put you back in the queue, so maybe we can figure that piece out. Maybe you have had me on mute, or maybe there's a microphone issue. You can always try, if you're calling in via Skype, you can always try the Skype test call first. That might help you as well, and being able to work through that. The chat room, they're already asking when the next one of these is, and if you go out to the Professor Messer website, there is professormesser.com/calendar. And of course, at the top of the screen is also a calendar. And that takes you to what all of the study groups are. We're here on January the 6th. Let me minimize some of these so you can see it. Next week is Network Plus, Security Plus. In February the 3rd is the next A Plus study group. So that may be what you want to think about doing when you're getting into looking at what you're going to go through and figure out these pieces for the study group. That'd be a good thing to do. We'd love to have you join us for this. If you're watching on the replay, check the calendar. Maybe there's one coming up. I tend to do these on Wednesdays at noon Eastern time, and usually I do 3 a month. So there's usually at least 1 or 2 Wednesdays during the week where we are dark, but usually it's something you can catch us and be able to join at least one of these study groups. If you do have a chance, so the question that everybody keeps asking this week is, should I take the 800 series or should I take the 900 series? And I usually tell people as a rule, take the latest exam. And the reason I usually say this as a best practice is that the latest exam is going to have the latest technologies on it, and most people will be more familiar with the latest technologies, and it's certainly valuable if you're learning the latest technologies. The latest exams also aren't going to expire be retired anytime soon. So if we've got this 900 series that just came out, the 900 series won't retire for 3 years. So the 800 series will retire on June the 30th. So if you're just starting now on the 800 series, you've got less than 6 months to be able to do this. So when you get into a chance where it's less than 6 months, things can happen in your life and you'll end up not being able to take the exam and get it done in time. So that's not what you want to be able to do either. But here's the thing. There's always a thing, right? Here is the thing. The 800 series exams are today a little bit easier than the 900 series exams. The 900 series exams have more content, specifically more information about Mac OS, more information about mobile devices, more information about Linux. There are over 20 new command lines you need to know for the 900 series. So it's not a big difference. There's a little bit of a difference. The 800 series is a little bit easier. It's not a lot easier. It's not a ton easier. Don't get me wrong. It's just a little bit easier. So I think the 800 series, because it's giving you exactly the same certification, there's an argument to be made that if you can really get that 800 series exam done before it's retired, it might be a little bit easier for you. But of course, when you start getting into this and you start figuring out, I got to learn XP. XP can actually be more difficult to learn if you've never touched it before. Instead, you should be focusing on Windows 8. So that's whenever I start looking at this, that becomes a bit of a challenge. So in the chat room, we have somebody asking, how should I prepare for the simulation questions on the A+ exam? I've already told you about the live labs from GTS Learning that you can find out at professormesser.com/live labs, but maybe you want to set up your own labs. Maybe you don't have a way to pay for these labs, and you also are going to have to come up with Windows 7, Windows Vista, and Windows 8 to work on. Not everybody has these operating systems sitting around, but Microsoft has these operating systems sitting around, and they will let you use them for free. So here's a little tip for you. Microsoft, whenever they want people to be able to work with their operating systems. They want people to have them in a lab. They want people to develop on their operating systems. And so they have created a website called modern.ie to be able to do this. It's primarily focused on developers, but this will apply also to people that need to run Windows in a non-production form. I've already gone through the terms of use and the end user license agreement for this. It absolutely applies. You can use this for your training as long as you do not use these operating systems for production use. On this website is a link for tools, and there is a section for virtual machines. Microsoft lets you download virtual machines running IE6 on XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10 even with these. So you can download all of these operating systems already configured in a virtual machine format. So for instance, if I chose Windows 7, I'll just choose IE10 on Windows 7. The version of Windows 7 I choose, the Internet Explorer that's on these is really for the developers. All we care about is that's running Windows 7, but I'll choose IE10. And you can see I'm on a Mac, so my options are I can download a VirtualBox, a Vagrant, a VMware, or Parallels version of this. This is on the website modern.ie for those of you wondering about this. Download it for free. If you're running Windows, if we chose IE10 on Windows 7, you have the option of VirtualBox, Vagrant, Hyper-V, VPC, and VMware. Now, if you're running a Windows, both VirtualBox and VMware Player are absolutely free. I personally recommend VirtualBox because it's so much easier to download, obtain, and use. Practically everything that I've done on my training is done in VirtualBox. I also use VMware as well on my Mac to be able to run this. VMware Fusion is the one that's on the Mac operating system, but it's right here. So all you need to do is, in fact, if you've ever looked at my videos on installing Windows XP, installing Windows 7, installing Windows Vista, I show you how to use VirtualBox to install it in VirtualBox. But those are really useful to be able to work through those. I think whenever I start working through trying to figure out how am I going to get all these operating systems in one place, Microsoft's already done it for you. It's absolutely free. Now, obviously, there's no labs here. You're going to have to come up with the lab yourself. You're going to have to do the part. Maybe there's a part in your book, or you can use the operating system and follow along with my videos. That's one way to do it. But they're all available for you to use right out of the gate. You can download them. They're pretty big images. For Windows, if I download IE10 on Win 7, I'm going to choose VirtualBox. It's a big file. Let's see how big this is. If I click download, 3.5 gig. You know, it's not awful. It's not horrible, but it is big. So you want to make sure you're on a network where you're not being charged for bandwidth downloads. You're not going to be on a slow network. Make sure you've got plenty of bandwidth to be able to do this, and you're not hurting yourself. You're not paying to download these virtual systems. They run, I think, for 30 days or 60 days or something like that, and then they just expire, and you have to download another one. Okay, I'm fine with that. You're not using them for production. You're usually just loading them up as you go. So why not take advantage of that? It makes perfect sense to me to have that there. Whenever I'm working and just need an operating system to try some things, I just click it and I go. And these virtual machines are fantastic. That's at modern.ie. You'll go there. It will redirect you to this dev.windows.com site to be able to download these virtual machines. I don't know how long Microsoft will have these available. They've been here, been on this site for over a year. So take advantage of it. Have these there and available to use. So this will save you a lot of money if you're trying to go through and figure these out too. Can be really, really useful. The IE refers to the Internet Explorer version that is installed into that virtual machine. As I mentioned, this was a website that was created for Microsoft developers. So developers want to try out their applications with certain Internet Explorer versions. How does it run in IE6? How does it run in IE7? How does it run in IE8, IE9, IE10, IE11? So that's Internet Explorer. And that's why, so they can download the one that they are using in their environment and test in that one. And yeah, if you're running Windows 10, and Edge is in here as well. So you can load it up and have a Windows 10 that's running Edge. Now, Windows 10 is not on your A+ exam. So you don't, for what we're doing here, you don't need Windows 10, but you do need Windows 8, Windows 7, and Windows Vista to be able to use this. Very useful to have that there too. I think whenever I start trying to find things, sometimes I just need to start up a Windows and run something and see if it works, or I need to get a screenshot for the videos that I'm creating. Very easy. I can just go here, download these images, and they're available to use. So a lot of the things that are in my videos come directly from these. So it becomes really, really useful to have that there. Take advantage of that. And if you're starting to go through and figure out, what am I going to do for these courses, that's a very good one to use. Well, I've got other questions that have come in throughout the week. Let me pop open my list of things. Let's see, I can put this over here because you're not looking at that right now. And being able to go through that piece. Whenever somebody starts running the virtualization software, it's always fun. They're in the chat room. How do I do this? And we step them through running the VMs. And if you've never run a virtual machine in your desktop before and you're running Windows 7 and all of a sudden Windows 8 pops up in a little window and you're running Windows inside of Windows, it's almost like magic. We've gotten so used to it now. It's just a normal part of the enterprise. It's a normal part of desktop virtualization. We do this all the time. If somebody's doing it for the first time, it is like magic. We get so jaded, don't we, with these pieces? Let's go to these questions that you've sent me this month on here. I'm going to pop open my spreadsheet so we can see this and have a look. Here's a lot in these questions that you've sent me. I want to thank everyone for sending those in. Before we go through some of these pieces, there's a few people that are, I'm going to pull up those questions. And in the meantime, let's go to the phones. We'll take a call very quickly from the 559 area code. Go ahead. Caller, what's your name?
Hello.
Hi, what's your name?
My name is Ammar Muzaffar. I'm from Iraq.
Oh, thank you for calling. What can we do for you today?
I just want to ask Professor Miser about what's the base, is the 80 series or the 90 series?
Are you trying to determine which one you want to take, or do you have specific questions about those two?
No, I have a specific question about what's the new one, the difference between the two versions of exams.
And I think that's a good question. That there are some significant differences between the 801 and the 901 and the 802 and the 902. And they are not just content differences, but they are structural differences as well. And I will recommend that you go to the Professor Messer website and go to professormesser.com/FAQ. This is my frequently asked questions. And right at the top of the page, let me get rid of the chat here, is a link to what is the difference between the 801, 802 and the 901, 902. So that link will take you to a document that I created that goes through a lot of detail about exactly what the differences are. And then I've also got a video that explains what's new on the 900 series. And I really try to go through every bullet and explain what those differences are. So it's a pretty big document that I tried to summarize at least somewhat better with the video. So I recommend you do that. Go to professormesser.com/FAQ, and I'll bet you get that answer that you're looking for.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate your help.
Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There's a lot that's changed. I think about 75% of the exam's the same. But the structure is so different. Now the 901 exam has it's now standalone. I can study just for the 901, pass that exam, and then put all that information aside and move on to the 902, which is very different than what it used to be. Let's go to the 661 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hello, Professor.
Hello. Hi, what's your name?
My name is Hussam.
Hey, Hussam.
You remember me.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you. I have two things for today. The first thing I want to say Thank you very much for your videos about doing everything for us.
You're very
The
welcome.
second
Thank you.
thing, I decided to take the 801 in this month.
Great.
I finished studying everything for the exam, and already have the exam exam for doing practice questions.
Nice.
What you recommended me for doing a lot of exam practice to take it, there's another help before I take the exam?
Yep. So there's a couple of things I would recommend. And one of the things I do, of course, is make sure when people are studying that, of course, you have the exam objectives. Make sure you have downloaded those from CompTIA. They make a great checklist, and you can just go down the list and start checking off the things you know or that you don't know. And then I recommend people get as many study materials as possible while you're doing the heavy part of your studying. So make sure you have a good book. Make sure you watch the videos. Do anything you have, maybe even multiple books to be able to do this. But at your point, it sounds like you've done a lot of the hard studying. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I have DisplayPort book. You recommended me before.
Okay.
I read it carefully. Yeah. I'm watching every day your videos.
Great. So this is the part, it's kind of the hard part. That is I call that the hard part of the studying, is just getting the information into the brain for the very first time. And you're having to learn all of the new topics. You're having to learn what the technologies are, but then you've gone through them a couple of times. And now you're at that section just before you take your exam. And one of the things I recommend is to get as many sample questions as you can to go through. There are a lot of questions on my website with my daily pop quiz. I have a lot of people that like the exam cram books. There's an exam cram book that is a sample questions exam cram book. So it's called exam cram practice questions. I have it. That's a good one. So that's a great, because then you've got something that can at least question you. Do you really know the information you're looking for? My friends at GTSlearning have a great ebook that also gives you access to online questions. There are other online questions around the internet as well, although some are better than others. So you kind of have to be careful about what you're finding on the internet and where you're working through those. But I think that's the best thing you should do prior to going in. Look at your notes, go through your sample questions, and if you can start checking things off on the exam objectives list, you'll know exactly what you need to study before going into the exam.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you for helping. Thank you.
And best of luck. Let me know how it goes as well.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling. There's a lot of content, though. Somebody was mentioning this week, and I have to agree, that the A+ exam is probably the broadest IT certification exam you will take, period. There is no exam out there, unless somebody can perhaps point me to one, that is broader in scope than the A+ exam. Now, I'm not saying that it's more complicated than any other exam, or that it has more details than any other exam. I'm saying the scope of the A+ is incredibly broad, because you have to know everything from hardware to operating systems to security to mobile devices to networking. There's just a lot to go through. So make sure you refer to those exam objectives and go through that piece. Let's go to back to the phones. 816 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hello.
Hi, what's your name?
Well, first things, my name is Nelson.
Hey, Nelson. Thanks for calling.
First, I wanted to thank you for helping me pass my 801.
Great. Congratulations.
Well, another thing is there's a couple kids in my IT class who are actually watching the stream right now.
Oh, great. Hey, everybody.
Is there any chance you could wave to them?
Hi. I just did that. Hey, what group is this? Is it, where's the class from?
Right now we're in Platte County, which is relatively close to Kansas City.
Is there a particular school or a college, university?
Northland Career Center.
Oh, fantastic. Well, everybody is it Northland?
Yeah,
Okay.
Northland Career Center.
All right, Northland Career Center. Thank you for watching. Thank you for calling. Good luck with your exams. Let me know how I can help.
All right, could you clarify the exact differences between the 801 and the 802?
Oh boy, yeah,
That's
there are only a
really my
couple,
only question.
right? There's only a 2 or 3 things that are different between these two. There are so many differences. Some are big differences. Some are very subtle differences. I probably don't want to get into too many of the subtle differences on a phone call, but I will redirect you to the frequently asked questions. So if you go to professormesser.com/FAQ, one of the first links at the top of the page there is what are the differences between the 801 and the 800, the 900 series. And what I tried to do, because I'm a detail person, I like to know intricacies of what's different. In fact, I have to know that if I'm building out a video course, I need to know what the differences are. So I went through both the 800 series exam objectives and the 900 series exam objectives, and I went through all of them and started drawing lines and figuring out what was new and what was not between both of them. And so I documented that in an article that I put on my website, which is what's new on the exam. So it goes into excruciating, painful detail about what's different between these two exams. And what the real differences are in each one of these different domains. This last week, however, I released a video where I sort of collapsed all of that down into the high level of what's different between those. So there's also a video that's out on YouTube, it's on my website as well, and on that page, which is what's new in the 900 series. And that gives you just a couple minutes. How long is this video? Let's see. Let me click on it real quick. It's 5 minutes long. So it's not very long at all. It gives you a 5-minute overview of what the differences are. You're in, you're out, and then you've got a pretty good idea of what those are. Are you trying to figure out if you should be taking one or the other, or is there some other reason that you want to know the differences?
Normally I'm going to try and figure out how to word this. The study program that I use is called Test Out, and it has them kind of jumbled up. It doesn't have them separated into 801 or 802.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out which parts I should study, seeing as I passed the 801.
Gotcha. It is, if you already passed the 801, you really don't have a choice. You need to pass the 802 because you can't mix and match.
Yeah.
You can't take the 902. And so and the structures are very different between the 800 series exam and 900 series anyway. So it wouldn't even make sense to take the 902 because it's not really the same thing as just an updated 802. So you're in a case where you really do have to take the 802 and you have to get it done by June the 30th. And if you don't, you'll have to start the process all over again. The 802 content, though, and the 902 content, not hugely different, though. Not an enormous difference between those. I like to say that the two series of exams have about 75% content overlap, which is a pretty big number. And it's just that the things that are new are very different. So, for instance, they got rid of Windows XP on the 802. On the 902, there's no longer XP that you get on the 802, and now there's Windows 8 on the 902 that you don't get on the 802. That's a big switch. When you're exchanging out entire operating systems, that's a big deal. Also on the 902, you have to know a lot of things about Mac OS. You have to know a lot of things about Linux. As you probably know when you've been studying the 802, none of that's in there. So, and maybe actually you're probably in better shape, Nelson, that the 802 is, I think, a little bit easier than the 902. So if you're planning on taking an exam right now, that 802 series is that's a pretty good one to go with, I think.
All right, sir. Thank you for your time, and please have an amazing day.
Thank you. Same to you, sir. Thanks for calling. There is this is probably it's just the number one question that I'm getting on the website right now, which is, where do I go with this? What do I do with this? And it's absolutely normal. This is what normally happens when we're in the middle of this transition, because we transition this way with not just A+, but with Network Plus, with the Security Plus. Whenever there's a new version, there's always an overlap. Now, if you're working through the 800 series, make sure you download the exam objectives. So if you finish the 801 and now you're ready to take the 802, the 802 is all about operating systems. It's all about Windows. It's all about troubleshooting the operating systems. In fact, the 802 is all troubleshooting at the end of it. There's an entire domain on troubleshooting. So there's a lot of things to think about there. There's also security on the 802. So in some ways, you're shifting gears when you go from the 801 to 802 or the 901 to 902. You kind of shift gears from hardware to operating systems. So you have to keep that in mind too. A lot of the things you learned in the 801, you may be asked about in the troubleshooting section of the 802. So there's a little bit of overlap there. You don't see that much overlap on the 901, 902. I think they did a better job of structuring it. So it's kind of a self-contained piece to be able to do that. I think that comes in handy too, I think. Whenever I start working through those, as I know that's where I'm going with it as well. We have another 661. Let's go to that call, 661. Or maybe not. I guess they hung up. Or that was one that I dropped as well. Nope, they hung up on that one. There is a lot of questions that came through this month about these and being able to work with those. Yeah, the folks in the chat room are now still talking about how you would renew your A+. The renewal section, I should probably do on my next study group, an entire section on renewals so that we can capture that in a video and stick it on the website, because it's not the easiest thing in the world to decipher from CompTIA's website. So I think I might do something like that so that everybody has access. Maybe I'll do that during the week so that I can just stick it on the website and you have access to it even faster. That might make more sense. Let me bring up some of the questions that you folks were so nice to send in on the A+ exam. There were a lot of questions that came in asking about what the main subjects for the A+ exam were. I get this question a lot. What should I study for? What things should I expect to see on the exam? Well, you never know exactly what you're going to see on the exam because it's a very big exam pool of questions. You're never sure exactly what topics you're going to get. So I always recommend people download the exam objectives. Always have them available so that you can go through the exam objectives and check off the list of what's on there. If you know everything in the exam objectives, you're going to pass your exam. You would have to just do a horrible job during the exam. There would have to be some type of weird issue that happened in the room for that piece. And you can take these exams in any order. So in the chat room, people are saying, can I take the 901 first and take that and pass it and then move off to the 902? And that's what I recommend. In the past, there have been some certification professionals who have recommended that you study for both of the exams and you take both of them at the same time. I have not necessarily agreed with that in the past. And with the 900 series, I definitely don't agree with that because the 901 and the 902 are definitely standalone exams at this point. Everything that's in the 901 is completely encapsulated. The Venn diagram of things that apply to both the 901 and 902 are very small relative to what you saw in the 800 series. So that's how that works. And you would have to continue. It's good for 3 years once you pass it. So the continuing education becomes very important. We're back to that continuing education question and being able to work through that. Some of the other questions. So when people say, what do I need to study? Grab the exam objectives, know everything that's on the exam objectives. No one topic is more important than any other. There is a distribution on the exam objectives telling you what each domain is going to be provided on the exam. So you'll know what percentage of the exam is coming from each section. It tells you exactly what you need to know. There's not a lot of certification exams out there that do that. I can't think of one actually offhand. That there is the CompTIA just has a remarkably detailed set of exam objectives to do. It's very useful to have that there. So take care of a few things in the chat room. There we go. Is there an estimate on how long it will take to receive an A+ certification? There is actually, and it varies for everybody. It really depends on your experience. How much you already know about computers, how much you already know about operating systems. Although I would say the average is somewhere between 3 to 6 months. that if the most people taking the exam study anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and they go do that. So that's one that I think is important as well, is being able to take the time you need to be able to learn everything that's in those exam objectives. And it's always different for me. For me, whenever I'm studying for industry certification, during the day I'm doing one thing, and then I try to get a couple of hours or two during the evening, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. So I tend to take even more than 6 months on certain certifications. I just finished a certification, I don't know, a year ago or so, probably just over. And it took me a while to finally read everything that was in the book, go back through it again, take some notes, just because there's so much going on in the rest of the world that I am in on those pieces. Does become very useful to do that. Is it worthwhile to watch the Network Plus and Security Plus study groups while you're studying for the A Plus? Yeah, I would not necessarily say so, not directly. The A Plus study groups, really, I focus on A Plus content. When I'm doing the Network Plus study group, it's really focusing on what you need to know to pass the Network Plus. There's not a lot of overlap on the Network Plus and Security Plus for A Plus. There's just not that Venn diagram is very different. There's hardly any overlap between those two. I would say that I won't say it overloads you, but it's things you don't need to know. You don't need to know about subnetting for your A Plus exam. You don't need to know about the volatility of data for your A Plus exam. Those are Network Plus and Security Plus questions, and those are very detailed questions. So don't worry about that. Focus on exactly what's on those A Plus exam objectives, and you'll be fine. And then once you get your A Plus, then you could start watching the other things as you're planning for the other pieces and going along those lines and having that there. Well, I have to agree. In the chat room, Fabrice is saying lots of memorization. I got to memorize clock speeds. I got to memorize capacities. There are port numbers. I know there's a lot. And unfortunately, much of this is just rote memorization. Things like clock speeds for RAM, those are just simple formulas. You multiply 8 to go from this number to this number, or divide by 8 to get back to that. Those can be kind of easy to figure out. It's more of understanding the nomenclature, DDR versus DDR2 versus DDR3, and understanding that when you see it on a test question. Other things like capacities, the capacities of network settings, the different categories of cable, the wiring for the network piece. That's tough. That's just normal types of memorization you have to know. Once you start working with these things in the field, it becomes automatic. Once you start crimping your own cables, knowing the 568A and 568B is just a normal thing. You become so used to it. But if you've never touched it before, I get it. It's tough to memorize these things. It's tough to figure these things out. So in some cases, if you've never touched them before or worked with them before, you're just going to have to memorize. There may be some mnemonics and some things other people can recommend. But some of it's just figuring it out, memorizing it, refer to your notes, and going through that piece. The 900 series exam doesn't talk specifically about DDR4. It goes all the way up to DDR3. There's no DDR4, but there's not like a big difference between DDR2, 3, and 4, or even DDR and DDR2 and DDR3 and DDR4. There's not a huge difference between those things. But you don't have to know about speeds or features of DDR4. There aren't that many fantastic new features that would apply for the things we need to know anyway for DDR4. There are some nice new features in DDR4, but nothing that's really A+ centric. It's memory, and it goes fast. And here's the speeds. That's the things you need to know. And DDR4 is relatively new on motherboards. So it's not something you have to worry too much about. So that's good. Let's go other questions. How long will it take to write the text? So write the test. So someone sits there working on the exam. You have 90 minutes. That's it. And you might get 90 questions maximum. You might get less than that, but you got 90 questions to go through in 90 minutes. That's not a lot of time. And that's why whenever we were talking about strategies for test taking, I should do another video on test taking strategies because there's a lot of good ones out there. And I mentioned skipping over the performance-based questions at the beginning and going right to multiple choice. I just think that's a great idea. Just tear through all the multiple choice you can, get all the way to the end, and then go back and do the performance-based questions. You can flag them at the beginning. And the A+ exam, not all exams are like this in the industry. Cisco, for instance, you have to go question after question after question. It takes you through the exam and you can't go backwards. With the A+ exam, you can jump around as much as you'd like. Same thing for Network Plus, same thing for Security Plus. That becomes very, very important when you're working on test-taking strategies. That way, let's jump all the way over to the multiple choice, get through all the multiple choice, then I'll come back and work on the first 5 or 7 or 9 or whatever it is, performance-based questions at the beginning. And I like to see more people and hear more people and see if that's what they're doing. That might actually help quite a bit when you're going through those pieces, I think. Let's go to the phones. We got the 512 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hi.
Hey, what's your name?
I'm Ben.
Hey, Ben. What can we do for you?
Yeah, so I'm currently studying the 800 series, and I know the 900 is going to be the current or up-to-date one. Should I basically just stop studying the 800 and move over to the 900? Or what do you suggest? I
have a very strong answer to this. It depends. And
Yep.
it's going to depend on a couple of different things. Have you taken any exam yet?
No, I have not.
So you're kind of the beginning of the studying process for all these things.
Yeah.
This is
basically
my basic broad answer on all of these is you should take the latest exam that's available, because you're future proofed not only on the content that you're learning, but you aren't going to run out of time because the exam is not going to be retired anytime soon. So you don't have to crunch it and try to get these certifications done in a particular time. You can work on your own schedule, which I think is important when you're studying for something as important as a certification exam. There are some employers, I haven't mentioned this today, some employers do know that there are differences between the 800 series and 900 series. Not a lot of employers, but there are some. And so some employers will insist that you take the newer exam if you're doing something for work. They're expecting you to take this exam and you get moved up to a different level with your career. They want you to have the latest one. And that's another good reason to always have the latest. And right now, taking the latest one and passing it kind of gives you a little bit of bragging rights over people that have the 800 series. I know it shouldn't really be that way, but you could say, well, I just took the latest one. I've got all the latest knowledge on the latest certification exam. And you can kind of say that you know a little bit more about the newer things, perhaps, than somebody who took the 800 series at the same time. So there might be a little bit of that as well. But as I mentioned, the 800 series exam, tad bit easier, just a little bit simpler. Probably not even enough to be making a difference there. So I would probably recommend, if you're just starting out, just go with 900 and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Is there a particular direction you're leaning right now?
Not really at the moment. I just kind of started about 2 months ago.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I'm kind of taking it at my own pace, trying to remember all this stuff.
Right. There's a lot of content.
Difficult.
And that's another good reason for the 900 series as well, because there's a lot of content on both of these exams. You should absolutely go through and be able to take the time you need. And the 900 series is the one that's going to give you that luxury.
Okay.
Well, best of luck, Ben. And if you have any questions about anything else, just give me a call back.
All right. Thank you.
Best of luck. There is so much to know. It's such a broad exam. So, yeah, go get the new stuff. It's about 75% overlap too. So, Ben, you've been working a couple months on this. You've been going through and trying to learn these things. You're going to need to know it for the 900 series. So why not just stop what you're doing, shift over to the 900 and keep it going with those pieces. Becomes useful. You know, I have some people that do go back and watch the older exam videos that I do. And I don't necessarily recommend this because the content is very different. But if you can piece out from the older videos, I do change them a bit. So the videos that are in the 800 series We're updated from the 700 series. We're updated. Don't go back and look at the 600 series. Oh my. But there are little differences between them. And sometimes watching a different video on the same topic may be the thing that helps you really solidify that particular feature there. So that may be something to also think about and work through for those pieces. I think it is anyway. So that's another thing to consider when you're working through trying to figure out, what do I study for? How's this going to go? And how am I going to work through these pieces? Well, we've come to the end of the second hour, and I think the end of my voice and the end of another study group. But what a great study group it's been. We've been able to really go through an amazing amount of content in a very short period of time. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining the study group and for being here every month. Thanks for participating in the Q&A that we do. Thanks for calling in on the after show. We would not be able to do the study group without you, and it's a lot of fun. So that part's great as well. Thanks, everybody. Always check. Next week is the Network Plus study group, and check the calendar for the study group time for the A Plus study group next month as well. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you next time on the A Plus study group. See you then.